So we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Aloni. I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest local media company in the New York metro area. We publish over 70 newspapers, magazines, websites, webinars, podcasts, and events throughout Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Westchester, Long Island, the East End, and Philadelphia. Today, I'm thrilled to be able to bring you The Doctor's Secret, a discussion with the author, and thrilled to introduce you to Dr. Tina Funt. Welcome, Dr. Tina Funt.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Elizabeth. Thanks so much for setting this up, and I'm really excited to be discussing the book with everyone.
Wonderful. So let me tell everyone a little bit about you. Dr. Funt is a board-certified dermatologist practicing for 32 years in Garden City. She focuses on both medical and cosmetic dermatology. She's a clinical instructor of dermatology at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. Dr. Funt grew up in Brooklyn, majoring in English literature before attending downstate medical school. She loves being a doctor, traveling, golfing, reading, the arts, and her dogs. Maybe we'll even hear them today. The Doctor's Secret is her first novel. She lives in both Manhattan and Quad, Long Island. Welcome, Dr. Funt.
Thank you.
So before we jump into everything about the book, tell us about your dermatology practice.
Sure. So I have been in private practice in Garden City on Long Island for the past 32 years. And my practice is a mixture of medical and cosmetic dermatology, as well as pediatric dermatology. And as you mentioned, I also do teach at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. I work with the dermatology residents who are just phenomenal. And all in all, it's a very exciting career.
And you have a very busy practice. So I'm surprised you even had the time to be an author, and your experience is tremendous. So what made you want to be an author?
I think I always wanted to write. I did major in English literature, as you mentioned, when I was in college. And I always loved writing, telling stories. And then just through the experience of being a doctor, I felt I had a story to tell. It was just something burning within. And I took out the time. You have to be extremely disciplined on my days off or on the weekend. I would get off. I would get myself into a room, sit down, write. Sometimes it flowed, sometimes it didn't. You really can't let anything interrupt you when you're doing that. And it just evolved.
Wow. So your process really took a lot of focus and time, but it was just something that was burning that had to come out. Wonderful. So your book has some powerful messages. Can you share some of those with us?
Of course. So it's really two messages. The first story is the story. It's going through like the time sequence narrative through the different decades, the 50s, the 60s, going all the way to almost the present, of the journey of becoming a doctor. And this was in the 1980s. And at that time, many women really didn't choose medicine as the career of choice. You had some, but not like it is nowadays. And there were conflicts trying to blend the career, which was demanding, and then motherhood. I was living in the suburbs, and it was the blend of the career role and the motherhood role that I was trying to put together, and there was conflict. So that's the initial story. But the other story, The Secret, which as people read, they'll see it's not really something nefarious like a murder being hidden or anything like that. It was really a psychological secret that on the outside, we all try to keep a veneer of everything being copacetic and perfect and getting it all together. But inside, the character at times was literally falling apart. And there was a lot of conflicts through her childhood. The book will touch on financial reversal, addiction, romantic sadness and betrayals, infidelities. And my message was one of optimism. If you kind of keep yourself, if you have determination and resilience and you have very special relationships, friends and family, you get through things and you evolve and you become stronger and you just handle what's given to you and you emerge at the other end of the tunnel with confidence and accomplishing what you want to.
It's such an appropriate topic, particularly now, because there's so much with social media where people put up this veneer of this perfection. And I think it's so pervasive in our society at every stage of life. And it's very wonderful to be able to see someone go through, the realization that that veneer is not going to protect them from the truth of what is within them, and how they're able to overcome it. So I think it's, that topic is so important right now for people to see that that veneer is not, it doesn't help you, and is an image of that's not even true of other people. Nobody ever puts up my addiction up on Facebook.
Except for maybe actresses and actors who are very honest about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do send a very good message to seek help, or for family members to deal with the issues. But other people are very frightened to show what they perceive is going to be a weakness if everything isn't picture perfect.
And what a juxtaposition of a doctor who people feel is all-knowing and perfect, right? Godlike, being able to show their frailty. I think that is even more powerful of an extreme situation, and realizing everyone is really at the core the same. So you talked about some of the specific traumas. Can you share a little bit more about those specific traumas that are in the book?
Yes. Well, firstly, a lot of the book is autobiographical, and some of it is doctored up, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But there was the issue of, I was brought up in Brooklyn in a very sheltered, safe environment. And then there was financial reversal. And first there was the shame. We try to hide it, not speak about it. There also was a time when my father struggled with alcoholism. And he was my role model, and he was really my rock. And I leaned on him, and he encouraged me in so many ways. And then when he struggled, there was anger. I felt anger, I felt betrayal, and then I felt forgiveness, which is the gift. I understood it. And even someone who you think has to be perfect collapses at times. But it taught me that addiction in itself, and I think that's something that's very important that we deal with in the open now. It's not evil. It's not that people are being evil or they're being weak. It's an illness, and it has to be taken serious. And the more help there is for society as a whole, the better it gets, and the less tragedy that we face. And other things, we all have disappointments romantically. So that wasn't the be all end all. But for some people, for some young people, and they get crushed when things don't work out, and they need the encouragement that this does happen to other people, and it happens to very good people and kind people, and just things happen even in the best of circumstances. So those were some of the
you don't want to give it all away.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
So you touched upon just a little bit about how some of the book is autobiographical. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the basic story that I was raised in Brooklyn. I started off as an English major. I then changed to being a pre-medical student and went on for medicine, did go to downstate. All of that is very, very true. I started my own practice. Some of the relationships, some of the problems that went on within a marriage, and sometimes connecting with old romances. There is some truth to that, but that was very doctored up because you have to make it interesting. And some of it was figments of my imagination, what I pictured could have happened, would have happened. So it's a blend.
I love that. I love that. So how is it as a doctor, how has that helped you with the themes in The Doctor's Secret?
Tremendously. When you're a doctor, and particularly if, let's say, you're an internist, a gynecologist, a dermatologist, you see your patients over and over, and they become close to you. And like I like to say, they bear themselves physically, but they also bear themselves emotionally. And I've heard so many stories, so much heartache, so much confessions in those rooms, that it gave me a tremendous insight into human nature and into people's problems and their fears and their insecurities. So it was a tremendous help. I just feel like I understood people more and more as the decades went on.
I can see how that would be the case. You see people in their such a vulnerable state, where they're coming to you for help. And so many people don't ask for help, right? So they're already in a much more vulnerable state. So the opportunity to really see their humanity is there for you. So it's really wonderful you're able to use that to be able to add that color to the book. Now the book is obviously entertaining, and the experiences and is fun and meaningful. But share more about how it really is a meaningful book, that it is, yes, entertaining, but that there's meaning behind this and meaning that people can glean from it.
There is. There's a section when the character was experiencing tremendous anxiety, and I had seen a wonderful therapist, and we did some cognitive behavioral therapy together, and we went through what they call cognitive behavioral distortions. It's in the book. It's written out in the chapter on anxiety and how you approach things. So it kind of was a little bit of a mini lesson in this, or telling people about this. There also was a lot of bonds of friendship that were there and for support. And I try to give the message, which I say over and over, of being resilient, because yes, when things happen, people can feel very sorry for themselves, but then other people will say, okay, let me be solution oriented. What am I going to do? What strengths can I take to turn around the situation? I can cry and wallow a little, nothing wrong with that. But now I don't want to continue doing that. So what am I going to do? What changes do I have to make, whether it be in my personal relationships, whether it be in my work? What's going to be positive for me to do? And that's the message I really tried so hard to convey.
I think that's such a good point, that it's both sides, that it's okay to feel the feelings and be overwhelmed by them, but that it's, now what do you do? I know that my mother always talked about a pity party, that once a day you can have like a 20-minute pity party and you can cry and feel terrible for yourself, and then it's over, and then you have tomorrow's pity party, but in the meantime you're gonna,
what are you going to do about this? And we do that at work. Sometimes the day becomes so overwhelming, and I have phenomenal staff. They're just really, really great. And sometimes we say, okay, what are we going to do? Event. I always say, let's get chocolate. That's my first thing. Let's just have something. But, you vent a little bit, then you say, okay, let's get organized. How are we going to coordinate to make this run a little bit more smoothly? And it is fine to have a pity party. I kind of believe that eventually it is good to have a stiff upper lip and go ahead, but it is okay to break down a little bit. I think it's healthy. It's cathartic.
Yeah, absolutely. It can certainly be a release. So is this book more, would you say, for men or women?
It's a good question. Yeah. I like to think of it more of a checkbook. And the reason being is because women are so much more in touch, for good or for bad. We are so much more in touch with our feelings. And I think that's for good. But, well, there's definitely sex in the book. And a couple of my male patients and friends who have read it did enjoy that. And as did the females. I think anybody would really enjoy it. The business with the fashion and shopping and speaking on the phone with your friends. Yeah, maybe women could relate a little bit more, but I think everyone could enjoy it.
Yeah, look, everybody goes through these type of things. And so
absolutely,
it's relatable for everyone. So what about the future books? Are you planning any future books?
I am. I'd like to do a sequel. For the Doctor Secret, where I went a little bit more in depth into the work relationships of the doctor with her colleagues and some close friends, probably women in their maybe 40s, 50s. We all get a little midlife. And so that would be one thing. And I really would love to do a children's series, something like the Berenstain Bears, where you always learned a little lesson. I remember when my son was younger, I would read him the Berenstain Bears and you took away a message. I'd like to do it, but have the characters be dogs. and talk about things: illness, loss, death of a parent, going to the doctor if they get ill, if they're bullied, if they don't do well in school, if their siblings are better students or better athletes than them, just ways of coping and getting stronger.
I think that's such an important thing, and being able to talk to children at a young age, to be able to understand their feelings and express their feelings. I think
And to grow from your feelings.
and you can do that at any age. I love that idea. So speaking about children, can you tell us, there's a charity component to your book?
Yes, there is. I am donating the proceeds to St. Jude's Children's Medical Research Center, and it's like the perfect blend of medicine and children, things, two very, very important areas in my life. And proceeds are sent there, and that's a thrill. So when patients do purchase the book, you could get the book on Amazon hardcover, which is the way I love to read, but you could also get it on the Kindle version. And we'll talk about how you get the book, but donations are given to the St. Jude's Medical Research Center, and we've been doing quite well so far.
That's so special. Really very generous of you to do that, and brings even more good than just the message of the book. I actually shared the link to the Amazon, and I just want to let people know that this book is so popular that it goes out of stock at Amazon. So I'm also going to provide you with Dr. Funt's email, which is TFMD, her initials MD, at AOL. I'm going to share that with you so that if you want to purchase a book and you go to Amazon and it's sold out, you can order it. And once they're back in stock, which should be in short order, they'll send it to you. But if you don't even want to wait another minute, you can email Dr. Funt, and she can make sure you get a copy of that book. So not to worry, you don't have to miss out on it. I'd love to get to some questions that our attendees have. So let me see. So Barry said, the book was great, a must read. And here's a male voice. I do have a question. He said, you never mentioned your father's reaction when you made med school.
Okay, that's very, very good. He was beyond elated. At that point, he no longer had a problem. He was healthy. I think it was always his dream that I would become a doctor, even before I even thought about it, because I think he had wanted to become a doctor, and he obviously was elated.
That's beautiful.
Thank you for asking that, Barry.
Now, Julie, who also has a signed copy of the book, has read the book and wrote a positive review. I think she's a big fan, which I love.
Yes, she's wonderful.
Have you thought about writing a parallel story from the husband's point of view?
No. No, that's a good question, but I might think about that. I might think that is interesting. Maybe in the next book or the sequel, I would take up more his point of view and see his side of certain things.
It's very interesting, because as a person goes through events in their lives, we're so consumed with what's happening in our lives. Sometimes we don't think about how it impacts the other people, the closest people in our lives. So,
yes.
I think that would be so interesting too. I think, Julie, you brought up something interesting.
I think that's great. And I think that would be, it's like a he said, she said type of thing, where you have different points of view, people evaluating the same situation. That is very interesting.
Yeah. I also love the idea that you're talking about focusing on her different relationships. And I think, I was thinking, wow, what a great TV series, kind of following her and her. I think it's, such an important thing about, women and balancing friendships and children and, relationships and work.
I would love that. I mean, that is one of my dream fantasies, that this could be made into a TV series, going through the different decades, which would be fun, showing the 50s, the 60s, and so forth, and also focusing on the relationships the way they did in Sex and the City. That definitely would be a thrill.
It's kind of the Sex and the City for the career woman, mom, partner, which is a totally different spin on it. So it could be something exciting. So tell me a little bit, can you give us some jumping from the book, because obviously you're a dermatologist.
Yes,
Can you give us some like insider skincare tips, maybe
of
something
course, of
that you
course.
share with your good friends? And
So the first thing, of course, is to wear sunscreen. Now, not against self-tanners, because sometimes having a tan does look pretty. And so they have the Jergens or the tan towelettes, and I'm not against any of that. But I think sunscreen is very, very important, both from preventing skin cancer and also for preserving your skin, because the sun, UV light, does wear down the skin and it generates those free radicals that are dangerous. I'm very into antioxidants, both topically, the antioxidant moisturizer and cleansers, vitamin C cream, vitamin A cream, which is retinoids. And I also believe in having a diet very rich in dark fruits and vegetables, including dark chocolate, which is healthy, so that you get antioxidant. I work with Schweiger Dermatology now, and we have lots of different products that, and we'll talk about any product, not just our own, but particularly we do a lot with antioxidants, because the products do seep through the skin, and that's how they take their effect.
terrific. So do things work better if you do them at night or in the morning? Does it matter?
Oh,
Like, different
you'd
skincare?
want to wash twice a day. You'd want to put on your moisturizer, your sunscreen, obviously in the morning. Retinoids, because they can be a little photosensitizing. That's the vitamin A derivatives you want to use in the evening. I usually say to people, everything is twice a day except for retin A, because that we do just in the evening. And that's for your basic complexion. You can do everything now. You can restore volume with fillers, can use the different toxins like Botox, Dysport, Xeomin, all those names, to kind of quiet down the muscles. So people ask me about the number 11 lines, the crow's feet near the eye. We do a lot of laser in the office to remove brown spots, red spots, light lines. We do wonderful work for acne scarring, which is the best, because years ago when you had acne scarring, people became extremely self-conscious, and we can really treat that beautifully now. So we have lasers for that, and we have some treatment for skin tightening. So just about everything, but of course we don't do the surgery, the surgical treatments, but we really can do tremendous rejuvenation to get the skin to look fuller and smoother, and have a little bit more of a glow.
Got it. Okay. That's good to know. What should people think about when they're thinking about finding a dermatologist?
I think the most important thing is to look for someone who's a board certified dermatologist. You want someone who does have the degree, particularly if you're going into, you're getting your skin exams. You don't want that given by your gynecologist. You want someone, could be the dermatologist, or it could be, we work with a lot of physicians assistants, and they're extremely well trained and they do a phenomenal job. But you want someone who's really put in the effort working just in dermatology. And I would think that that's probably the most important thing.
It's just like anything else. I mean, you're not going to go see a foot doctor if you have a heart issue. You
Absolutely.
want to.
We might know a little bit and we could speak about it, but you really want to go to somebody who's spending their day focusing on this. It could be the doctor, it could be the physician assistant, but they should be dermatologically trained.
Terrific. Well, let me jump back to the book. We have some more questions. So Em wanted to know, can you share a little bit about your publishing journey?
Oh, that has been challenging too. I had the book self-published. I had a patient of mine who worked with me, and she did some of the editing. Then that's different than if you go to a huge publishing house where they're going to take it and they're going to market the book for you, and they're going to have publicists. I kind of just put the book out there and said, look, I wrote it. It was edited by this editor, and it was published. But I actually said, would you like to get a copy of the book? And we're donating the proceeds and, to the Children's Medical Center. And it's really been word of mouth, and it's taking off. I have people who say, I was just in the beauty parlor the other day, and as I was going in, somebody said to me, oh, you're the one that wrote the book. So it's just I guess it's the way I started my practice. I just spoke about it a lot. I tried to do the very best I could. And then through goodwill and hard work, it just took off and it marketed itself. I'm thrilled to be having the webinar with you so we could be discussing it. I think this is just a wonderful platform for the author to speak about her book in a very honest and open way. So this is wonderful.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And it's so wonderful to be able to, hear from the author directly. So we have another question about, how did your family and the people depicted in the book react?
Most of them, well, remember, a lot of it was exaggerated. So like certain things where the character's husband, who was a surgeon, and that is true in real life, was made to seem kind of less emotional than she was, which is true. It was exaggerated in certain ways, but then it was also, I made up for everybody in the acknowledgments and in dedication. So they knew I really loved them, but I was using them as a framework for characters. Some of them loved it. I mean, the friends were glowing that they were mentioned. So right. A little bit of everything.
Terrific. So, you got a piece of them, but it wasn't like you read their diary to everybody.
No, and you know what? You even write that in the beginning of the book. Actually, I stated, this is, and it is a work of fiction, and any resemblance is coincidental. Sometimes it really was. A lot of it was similar to the character, but then a lot of it was exaggerated, what you want to call poetic license or doctored up, because I wanted to make it interesting and, a little bit more, I don't know, put a little more pizzazz into it.
And also, it's an exciting, adventure for your imagination as
yes, certain things were, what would have happened if, and what if we went there?
Yeah, no, real life is a wonderful starting point for you then to blossom into your imagination's world and share that with everybody.
Exactly.
It's wonderful. So I wanted to end our conversation with an opportunity for you to share something with all of your readers and potential readers about the process, maybe something that you didn't put in the acknowledgments, or, was there anything that surprised you about the process or excited you about the process?
Yeah.
Because obviously this is the first time.
Yes, very much so. And you're very perceptive, Elizabeth, because you sit down and write and it seems so romantic, and you're writing and you have your mug of coffee and, whether you do it, I did this longhand actually, because I work better that way. But even if you're on your laptop, it is brutal writing. It is not an easy thing. The story may come, but then you want to get a certain flow. You go over it, you play with the words. There's times that you almost could feel like nauseous through the process because you're going over it so many times and you're going within. Even if it's not a book that relates to you, I think anything you do in the arts, you have to set aside, or any hobby that you love, that you take seriously, you have to give yourself that time. You can't say, well, you know what, I'll do this for a few minutes. Somebody interrupts me. No, you turn off the cell phone. You don't look at emails. You concentrate. You do what you have to do. It may not come out great. You have to go back and do it again and do it again. So it is a labor of love, but it is a labor. It truly, truly is very, very hard work. And it makes you appreciate artists that much more when you're doing it. You realize what they really put into it.
I love that description of it, because it's almost like you were birthing.
It is. It is. And, you want it to be just a certain way. And, people can give criticism. And it's funny, there's one or two people who did give me a little criticism. I took it okay. I mean, first you take it from who it comes, right?
Exactly.
People that spoke to me loved the book, but there were some people who I think missed points of it and they were nitpicking on certain things. And I'd say, okay, I appreciate that. That isn't what I was getting at, but it just shows you that when you create something, or the way you come off sometimes may not be the way you want to be coming off, or what you're saying may not be coming out the way you want it to come out. So it's good to hear, and you have to have a thick skin. You definitely do.
Absolutely. Anytime you put yourself out there, you have to have a thick skin. But I also think, interestingly too, we talked about, a potential book coming from, the husband's perspective. But also it's like whenever you read a book, I mean, that's the beauty of it, I think, is that it filters through you and your
Yes.
experience and your
Yes.
eyes and
Yes.
so it's really your opinion of it is really swayed by you. What.
Reality is in many ways what you perceive. We're not talking about if someone unfortunately is mentally ill and their reality is just not intact with the reality, but you could have two people interpreting a situation, and you have this with a girlfriend who you're very close with, and you can say, look, I love you, so we have to sit down and talk about this. If you don't care about the person, well, that's easy. But if you care, you have to say, I'm interpreting it this way. How are you interpreting it? And sometimes you realize, and that's why dialogue and communication is so important, because you could inadvertently be hurting someone or saying something that you don't mean it to be the way it's being perceived by the other person.
Yeah, I mean, you really put this beautiful piece of literature and your heart and soul out into the universe, and now it's really each individual's opportunity to take it in and engage with it as they will. And I'm sure, as an author, it's exciting and can be scary too.
It can. And, some of writing is, as we said, to give a lesson, to impart what wisdom you have. Some of it is just like when you do sexy scenes, that's just fun. You want to take people out of their mind. They've had a difficult day. We've all been through COVID this year. Hey, let's read this sexy scene. It's fun. It feels good. So it's sometimes just for that, brings back a memory of something. And a lot of the arts is not only to give a message. That's a tremendous part of it. Sometimes it's just a healthy distraction that we need.
And don't we all need that for sure?
Oh boy, after this year.
This is a great read. I highly recommend it. I'm going to share again the link to Amazon where you can pick up your copy if you do not yet have a copy of it. I highly recommend it. It's great summer reading, fall, spring, any time of year. But you know what? Now's the perfect time to be able to pick up this book, read it, and also know that you're doing good, because Dr. Funt is, as she said, donating all the proceeds to St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which is so beautiful. And Dr. Funt, thank you so much for taking the time with us today and sharing with us your thoughts and how this book came about. And I wish you all the best with it. And I can't wait for your next one.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you, everyone, for joining in. And I really do hope you enjoyed the book.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the attendees for spending some of this beautiful afternoon with us. I look forward to your feedback on the book. I'm sure that you'll love it. And we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Absolutely. Bye-bye, everyone.